Hey, it's Paula Hines Lonergan, and time's up for me to be silent. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know it is the truth. But I've been doing a sequence of videos on Whitney Houston, and the reason that I'm motivated to do so is because in watching the movie Whitney, it just provided so much insight into the person she became and ultimately, what may have contributed to her decisions and her ultimate demise. Anyways, I've dealt with a couple of angles in connection to what, really touched me in the movie. In this video, I wanted to talk a little bit about sex. Now, I'm going to try to tread real lightly because I don't want to make any conclusions in connection, but I wanted to talk about how being abused as a child affects a child's viewpoint of sex itself and the decisions they may ultimately make. It affects relationships, choices, in so many ways. Now, in the movie Whitney, Whitney cannot speak for herself, but she only has people that knew her, basically. And one of the confidants that she said, that she had, the lady in the video, mentioned in talking about Whitney that I guess Whitney was very, I guess, in a way she kind of said, oh, Whitney sleep with anything. I mean, and I'm sure that wasn't very little, but I guess Whitney was very fluid or liberal in connection to sexual relations, it sounds like. And like I said, from the standpoint of being sexually abused, which, in watching the movie Whitney, you don't know that that was part of her history until the end of the movie. But I just had a suspicion kind of along the way. And the reason is because of some of the things that the Courage to Heal book by Ellen Bass and Laura Davis, and what it says in the book on how childhood sexual abuse affects sex. Okay, or in the subheading on this is actually sexuality. It says, when children are abused, their natural sexual unfolding is stolen. And that's very impactful because if you think about it, children are supposed to be kids. And, it's unfortunate now that children are, exposed and educated so much about things that are probably beyond their understanding or things that they should be exposed to. But it sounds like maybe in Whitney's case, she was exposed early to sexual things, and it ended up being by another woman, which probably ultimately caused an additional level of confusion. But anyways, the Courage to Heal book continues. Talk about children. They are introduced to sex on an adult's timetable, according to an adult's needs. It says they may not have a chance to explore naturally, to experience their own desires from inside. Sexual arousal becomes linked to feelings of shame, disgust, pain, and humiliation. Pleasure is tainted as well. And the abuser's desire, is dangerous, an out-of-control force used to hurt them. And now that's something, that last statement is something to be very aware of, that the perpetrators of sexual abuse are, like it says, dangerous. They're selfish. It's, the fact that they would, do anything to a child, it has a really a forever impact, on that child. So in the case of Whitney Houston, in the movie, two people said that one of them was her brother. Her brother said that it was I guess a cousin, Dee Dee Warwick, who did sexual advances toward him as well as to Whitney. And then it was one of, I guess, Whitney's personal assistants that said that Whitney confided in her that it was Dee Dee Warwick who also made sexual advances to her toward her as a child. I mean, so that being a case, I mean, for a woman, to make sexual advances on another woman, I mean, that also, gets into issues of kind of identity when it comes to sexuality as well, which, like I said, can be a double whammy. But the Courage to Heal book continues. It says, children often leave their bodies during sex with the abuser. They may numb themselves or disappear. They may disconnect from sexual feelings or experience as arousal as confusing, bad, or shameful. When abuse is coupled with affection, the need for nurturing can be linked with sex. Sometimes survivors don't know how to meet these needs in other ways, and that's where like a person can start to become very either promiscuous, not have the ability to say no, or find themselves in situations where there's perhaps abuse or degradation involved in connection to relations. Now, there it continues on page 9 in that particular subheading. But I just wanted to pull out just a couple of the phrases that it talks about how survivors of sexual abuse may feel in connection to what I read or what I saw in the movie about Whitney Houston. So now it says, like I said, Whitney's gone. She can't speak for herself. So I'm only relying on what her fleshly brother said and what the personal assistant said that Whitney told her, or what they observed about her. Now in my other video, I already discussed how Whitney had an issue with drugs, but if there's childhood sexual abuse involved, then a person may have trouble. It says maybe turned on by violent, sadistic, or incestuous fantasies. Engage in sex that repeats their abuse, having continue to be sexually abused, use sex as a way to exert power or control. And so these are some of the effects that some survivors of childhood sexual abuse may end up getting involved with. But then it continues, that subject continues on page 24 of the Courage to Heal book. And it says, sometimes a person may find themselves addicted to pornography, phone sex, internet sex, sex in circumstances that are humiliating, violent, dangerous, or reminiscent of the abuse. It says, whatever the habitual habit, you may find it extremely difficult to stop despite repeated attempts and intentions. So because of the childhood sexual abuse, a person may really it's their sense of sexuality is kind of I guess skewed in a little bit, because children, you're putting on a child things that really belong to an adult. And so in Whitney's case, I can see where the things that were mentioned about her could very well have been true in regards to her. Like I said, it kind of gave me the idea of being very promiscuous, and perhaps not just with the opposite sex, but in other ways as well. But once again, one of the detrimental, maddening, saddening effects of childhood sexual abuse, and it could show up in so many different ways as a person grows and becomes an adult. Once again, childhood sexual abuse is not something you just get over, and heal from. It'd be nice if that was easy, but out of all the traumas that a person can experience, that is the most insidious. And now in another video, I'm going to explain to you why I make that particular statement, that there's a lot of traumas a person can experience, but why sexual abuse is most insidious and can have the most detrimental effects. I attended a seminar just last week, and I found that thought to be very educational, but I'll address that in another video. But once again, in connection to Whitney, like I said, that movie just kind of opened my eyes, touched my heart, broke my heart, really. Such beauty and talent marred by early childhood experiences that were never dealt with or healed or touched on. anyways, did you see the Whitney movie? And what are your thoughts on it? Did as you were watching it, did you kind of feel like, oh, you kind of sense that maybe something had happened to her as a child? Anyways, let me know your thoughts. My name's Paula Hines Lonergan. Time's up for me to be silent. I'm about healing and education myself and sharing with others. Anyways, you can send me an email, timesupforsilence@gmail.com, or you can send me a regular letter. I'll put my mailing address, or you can put in notes in the notes section. All right, let me know your thoughts. Thanks.